Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. I don't know if I can imagine a worse way to go. Death by boiling, one of the worst punishments in history. San Roman History, awesome channel. I love this channel. Preemptive like. My name's Connor. If you're new, getting started. I'm from Rhode Island, New England, USA, in that order. And I like to watch things and do stuff on YouTube. There's the door. If you're not ready to learn, Olmec's down the hall. You're in the wrong class, my friend. Or sit in the back and chill. That's fine, too. Let's go.
Death by boiling was one of the worst punishments in history. The idea of boiling a human being alive calls to mind an image of terrifying barbarians who revel in slowly torturing their victim, or we might think of savage cannibals on a small island preparing their gruesome dinner. But truth be told, the practice of boiling people alive is not that alien. Less than 500 years ago, boiling alive was a punishment used in Europe as well. It was intended for particularly serious offenses such as counterfeiting money, poisoning, or exceptionally violent crimes. If we imagine the pain even a small splash of hot oil causes on our skin, the agony of being immersed in boiling liquid is unimaginable. Depending on place, time, and severity of the offense, different variations of the punishment were practiced. Usually, the tool of choice was a large copper cauldron filled with water, oil, tallow, wax, lead, or wine. However, the condemned person was not simply thrown into the liquid. Sometimes, the torture would be prolonged by tying the victim up in cold water, which was then gradually brought to the boil. In some cases, those condemned were hung upside down and immersed with their heads first, or in other cases, their knees were tied to their chest so that their butt plunged into the boiling liquid first, and sometimes they were simply hung in the steam horizontally. Probably the earliest reference of this form of execution are found in the martyr stories of Christian saints. For example, Saint Antipas is said to have been executed in a bull-shaped vessel, and the tale goes that John the Evangelist was boiled in oil during the persecution of Christians under the reign of Emperor Domitian. Saint Vitus is also often depicted in a cauldron of boiling oil, but according to legend, he was saved at the last moment by angels. One of the best documented cases of an execution by boiling is the case of one Richard Roose, who was executed in Smithfield, London in 1531. We know only very little about this man except that he was the cook of the Bishop of Rochester. One day, in winter of 1531, he prepared porridge for his master and his guests in the kitchen of the bishop's palace in Lambeth, March. As was customary, the leftovers were distributed to the poor and needy. Soon after, the alarm bell was ringing. All those who had eaten from the porridge suddenly fell seriously ill. One of the beggars even died a while later. For unknown reasons, the bishop himself had not eaten of the porridge and took no harm. Investigations revealed that the porridge had been poisoned, and Roose was arrested and questioned. He admitted that he had mixed laxatives into the food as a joke, but with no ill intent. King Henry VIII, yes, the one with all these dead and exiled wives, dealt with the case at the next sitting of the Parliament. The Parliament promulgated the Act for Poisoning, a decree declaring poisoning to be high treason and prescribing in law death by boiling as the appropriate punishment. Such a drastic penalty was chosen because many people, especially the members of the English nobility, were afraid of poison attacks. These were considered one of the most insidious forms of murder. Although food poisoning due to poor hygiene was much more common than poisonous assassination attempts.
It makes sense, but it's kind of infuriating how the way a punishment was deemed fit for a crime was if it harmed, it had a bigger chance of harming the upper class. I can see why they would do that, but geez.
The England of Henry VIII was characterized by religious struggles, changing power structures, and political tensions. One of our favorite documentaries providing insight into this time of struggle over religion and power is Game of Queens. You'll find it on CuriosityStream, the sponsor of today's video. It is part of the series The Real War of Thrones, The Wars of Religion, more specifically of the second season, which covers the times of religious wars dividing Europe after the Reformation. Starting with the
Guys, just want to say their link is at down here at curiositystream.com/SanRoman. Make sure to use their link. It makes Curiosity know that they were sent from here and will therefore give them more money. Want to make sure
Game of Queens and ending with The Last of Valois. The series provides not only insight into one of the most violent and intriguing periods of history, but also excellent entertainment. For everybody watching our channel regularly, The War of Thrones is definitely worth a watch. Especially because we haven't covered English history in much detail as of yet. Besides history, Curiosity Stream is home to thousands of other streamable documentaries and non-fiction TV shows on topics like nature, science, and much more. To sign up to Curiosity Stream, use code SandroMan for just $14.99 for the whole year. This way, you get a 25% discount and help out our channel. Now, let's jump back to the video.
Let's do it.
Whatever the motives, Richard Roose was boiled to death in Smithfield on April 15, 1532, in accordance to the law. The executioner bound him with chains, tied him up on a pulley system that resembled traditional gallows, and slowly dunked the poor cook into a huge cauldron of boiling water 3 times. Because this execution was particularly spectacular, it attracted a huge crowd. One eyewitness described the scene, quote, "He roared mighty loud, and divers women, who were being with child and did feel sick at the sight of what they saw, were carried away half dead. And other men and women did not seem frightened by the boiling alive, but would prefer to see the headsman at his work." End quote. After about 2 hours, Roose finally died. Whether
Jesus. Question, guys. So I asked this in another video. If you answered it, sorry. I'll check that comment section. But the reason the executioners wore the head coverings was to protect them from retribution from other people, right? You wouldn't want to be seen as the guy killing people all the time, because then a relative or friend might see you as the killer and kill you. Is that the reason?
After about 2 hours, Roose finally died. Whether Roose really resorted to poison and why he might have done so is unclear to this day. But some absurd theories surround the story. Malicious tongues claim that the king himself ordered Roose to poison the bishop because he, as a representative of the church, forbade him to divorce Catherine of Aragon, the first of his 6 wives. Only 2 other executions by boiling are known to have taken place in England. In both cases, a woman was accused of poisoning. In 1547, the punishment was already officially abolished. England aside, reports of execution by boiling are found in many places, from Scotland to the Holy Roman Empire and from France to various Asian countries. In Kyoto, for example, the legendary Japanese bandit Ishikawa Goemon is said to have been boiled alive along with his son in 1594 as a punishment for an attempted assassination. In Nuremberg, a clothmaker was executed this way in 1392 for allegedly raping and killing his own mother. And in Stralsund, a counterfeiter was thrown into oil to set a warning example in 1471. In the Dutch city of Deventer, the execution cauldron actually hangs on the wall of the city museum today.
Wow.
In continental Europe, the punishment was in use from the 13th to the 17th century. In contrast to the English law on the continent, it was mainly given to counterfeiters. A contemporary code of law prescribed, quote, "Should a coiner be caught in the act, then let him be stewed in a pan, or in a cauldron half an ell deep for the body, so that the man may be bound to a pole which shall be passed through the rings of the cauldron, and which shall be tightly strapped and bound to upright posts on either side, and thus he shall be made to stew in oil and wine."
I mean, at least it has the caveat of should a coiner be caught in the act, so it's not like there's some allegation.
Died, and thus always went according to plan. And wine. But not everything always went according to plan. In 1488, in the French city of Tours, a counterfeiter named Louis the Secretary was sentenced to death by boiling, stretching, and hanging. First, the cauldron was filled with cold water and then slowly heated up. When the executioner had tied Louis up, he threw him into the cauldron head first. However, he hadn't done a proper job, and, quote, as soon as he was thrown in, the cords became so loose that he twice rose to the surface of the water, crying for mercy, end quote. This outraged the people, who feared that Louis's needless suffering would bring disgrace to their town. They attacked the executioner, while the intimidated man tried to push the condemned down under the water with a large iron hook. When Louis kept coming up and remained unharmed nevertheless, some people thought a miracle was happening in front of their eyes. They began attacking the executioner, who was desperately trying to complete his task. The situation escalated to the point that the crowd was beating the executioner to death while pulling Louis out of the cauldron. Afterwards, King Charles VIII pardoned Louis the secretary as well as the townspeople who killed the executioner, but Louis, quote, hid himself so completely that he never dared to show his face again, end quote. In the late 16th century, execution by boiling went out of fashion in Europe. In many places, however, it was officially abolished only much later. In France, for example, only in 1791.
It's so macabre and everything, but the guy like trying to, push the guy down, the executioner, push it down in the cauldron. Is like, is he like that dutiful to his job? He's like, no, I must complete the task. Or is he afraid that like, no, this guy gets out, he's going to want me dead or something?
In 2015, the NGO Human Rights Watch accused the government of Uzbekistan for torturing suspected terrorists to death by boiling them. And ISIS and the cartels of Mexico allegedly still use this method of execution today. The agony of the victims of such an execution is unimaginable. Fortunately, boiling alive has more or less disappeared from the world. It has always been a rare punishment, but now it is even more unlikely than in the Middle Ages or the Renaissance that anyone finds their gruesome death in boiling water, wine, or oil.
That was horrifying and informative, educational. Yeah, great video. San Roman history, awesome. Love the channel. See you guys next time.